Now I know where you're at. You're in the market for a well-featured, city-friendly urban SUV with a good reputation, but you don't want to pay over the odds. Well, have I got good news for you. Both these two characters have recently had their successors announced, which, officially or otherwise, puts them both into run-out. What that means is you can drive a sharper deal, but which one's right for you? Well, let's find out. The new Nissan Qashqai, which arrives later this year, features an all-new hyper-modern design, with striking angles and some pretty cool LED headlamps. There's new technology, including a 9-inch infotainment screen, plus the potential of a hybrid drivetrain. The current Qashqai arrived in Australia in 2013 as a replacement for the compact Nissan Dualis. It received a mild facelift in 2018, and throughout its run has been a consistently strong seller in the segment. Our car is the near top-of-the-range STL Midnight Edition. What you get with this one is some blacked-out trim, naturally, a special badge on the back, new wheels, they're 19-inch and of course black. There are light-up kick plates and Alcantara on the seats. LED headlamps and tail lamps are standard, as is a blacked-out grille. The car also features roof rails and a shark fin-style antenna on the roof. Pricing for the Qashqai Midnight Edition starts from $35,900 before options and on-road costs, and our car is finished in gun metallic paint, a $595 option and one of 5 choices. Now, as a whole, the Nissan Qashqai has always been a relatively good-looking car. It's held itself well, considering it's now 8 years old. Under the bonnet of the Nissan is a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine with 106 kilowatts of power and 200 Nm of torque available. It runs through a continuously variable or CVT transmission and drives the front wheels only. The all-new Honda HR-V has also received a complete overhaul and, like the Nissan, will arrive later in the year. It's a much more refined and sleek design, and all models will feature hybrid petrol-electric power. The current HR-V also arrived in 2013 and has been a huge success for Honda. The sharper facelift in 2018 has kept it modern and ensured its continual appeal to buyers. Our HR-V is also near top of the range. This is the RS, which again gets blacked out trim, different alloy wheels, they're 18-inch on this car, plus a few other bits and pieces around the body. Again too, the HR-V has held itself well, considering it's also 8 years old, and I think in terms of design is a somewhat more modern and kind of funky approach than the Nissan. Worth saying too is metallic paint colours on this car are a no-cost option. Pricing for the Honda HR-V RS starts from $33,690 before options and on-road costs. Our Phoenix Orange paint is a pearlescent finish and one of 7 choices available. The Honda is powered by a 1.8-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine with 105 kilowatts and 172 Nm available. Like the Nissan, it also drives the front wheels through a CVT transmission. Now, before we go too much further, I will say we washed these this morning, but it's now rained on us because this is Melbourne. Anyway, no power tailgate here, but there is a 430-litre boot. The seats fold 60/40 and there is a temporary spare tyre under the floor. Well, back here, there's actually plenty of room. As you can see, I'm 6'3", that seat is in my driving position, and despite the bench being quite low and my thighs sort of sitting off it, I've got good toe room, good leg room, and really good headroom. It's quite comfy back here. You do get the Alcantara trimming here in the Midnight Edition, plus there's also a centre armrest with cup holders, mat pockets on both seats, a little storage cubby, but sadly no vents or USB charge points. It's much the same story down the back of the Honda. It's also dirty, there's also no power tailgate, it's also got a space-saver spare wheel under the floor, but the boot is marginally bigger than the Nissan at 437 litres. There's a flexible cargo blind and the seats also fold in a 60/40 configuration. But the HR-V has a neat trick up its sleeve. Honda's Magic seats allow the rear row to be folded in 18 different ways, in a tall, long or utility setting, that allows for nearly any cargo, regardless of shape, to fit inside. It's hugely practical and still a surprise that only Honda has embraced such an interior configuration system. Well, when the seats aren't being magic, there's still some pretty good room in the back of the HR-V. As you can see, I'm still 6'3", that seat is still in my driving position, and I've got great toe and knee room. Not quite as much headroom in the as in the Qashqai, but still very good. The seat sits a little bit higher and you do sit a bit more upright, but it is very spacious. There's no armrest in this car, although you do get mat pockets behind both seats. There is a storage cubby with a 12-volt outlet as well. Well, up front, that funky exterior design of the HR-V continues here to the interior. You've got some neat treatments on the dash with the vent placements, a 7-inch touchscreen in the middle which has support for tethered Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's some good storage options too. A multi-layer cup holder here that can take either a bottle or a coffee cup in the same cavity, good storage under the armrest, and bottle bins in the doors, as well as a glove box. There's a pair of USB ports and a handy shelf down under the main console too. Let's check out the Nissan. Well, the interior of the Qashqai is a bit like the exterior. Smart, but a bit more conservative than what we find in the Honda. That said, it's probably a bit more practical than what we find in the Honda too. You've got a big central storage cubby here with a 12-volt and a USB, a phone tray, two easy-to-reach cup holders, another tray up the front with another 12-volt outlet. There's a 7-inch touchscreen which again has tethered access to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but what the Qashqai has that the Honda doesn't is a host of standard safety equipment. Autonomous emergency braking, forward collision warning, lane departure warning, blind spot assist, and rear cross traffic alert form part of a comprehensive suite of assistance and safety tech included on the Midnight Edition Qashqai. Now, an interesting fact, while we've been filming, it seems that every other car on the road is a Qashqai, and it's easy to see why. It really is a good all-round proposition. On the move, the Qashqai pulls initially quite nicely, but then just dulls out, and it kind of feels perhaps a little bit sluggish, if you will. But maybe that's a bit unfair. Let's just say it's not particularly sporty. But while it might not be the last word in dynamic performance, what the Qashqai does better than many other cars on the market, including ones that are priced well ahead of where it is its ride comfort and compliance. It is a tremendously comfortable car, even on these big 19-inch wheels. I'd actually go for a lower size, so you do get a thicker tyre and thus an even more comfortable ride. But there's no harshness, there's no thumping. It is just a nice, comfortable suspension setup. Steering and handling though, that comfort kind of comes at a cost. The car doesn't feel particularly direct and connected. You turn the wheel, the wheels turn, the car goes around the corner. It all works, but it's not really an engaging kind of a car. It is, again, conservative in many ways. Now, Nissan claim fuel consumption on a combined cycle is 6.9 litres per 100 kilometres, which again isn't too bad. This thing weighs about 1350 kilos, so a little bit more than the Honda, but it's not heavy by any stretch. One other big area where the Qashqai stands out is the amount of standard safety technology on board. You get a really nice, clear digital speed readout in the instrument binnacle, which you don't get in the Honda. And it just sort of goes to show that despite being 8 years old, the Qashqai has evolved really well over time. And it actually provides you with a very comprehensive package of not only functionality and technology, but also safety. Vision out of here is good. I can see clearly out the back window, big windscreen, clear side windows. Again, a very easy car to live with. Let's check out the Honda. Maneuvering is what's key about the HR-V because it feels sporty. There's a really nice feel from the wheel. It turns in nice and cleanly and accurately, and you do feel that you are connected to the car and that you're actually driving the car rather than just floating along, which I have to say I actually like. Drive is to the front wheels only through a continuously variable transmission, or a CVT. Strangely though, you get paddles on the steering wheel here, so you can shift theoretical gears. It has a number of preset ratios that the car will jump to. So it gives you the illusion of shifting sporty gears. It's one of the better CVTs out there. It doesn't have that same prolonged elasticity as you find in some cars and that sort of endless drone. Now, the ride itself is a little bit firmer than what we experienced in the Qashqai, but it's not ever uncomfortable, and it does, well, it translates to a little bit more of an engaging drive, and it does make the HR-V, dare I say it, a little bit fun. Vision around the cabin is actually really good. You sit up quite high, you've got obviously a nice big windscreen in front, but the view through to the back, and I've actually got the headrests up in the rear seat at the moment, I can see very, very clearly out the back window. So it's actually a very well set up car for maneuvering around town. Honda claim a combined fuel consumption cycle of 6.7 litres per 100. That's due to a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder with no assistance from turbocharging. So it's pretty fair for not only the mechanics but the segment. But in general sense too, it's a pretty zippy little car, especially off the mark, and more so than what we found in the Nissan, despite the Nissan's slightly more impressive credentials. But even if all of those numbers don't really matter to you, the simple takeaway from this car is it's a very easy car to drive, but it's also an enjoyable and kind of fun car to drive. And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's all about? Well, there's a fair amount of information to process there because each car has its strengths and its weaknesses. As to which one's right for you, well, it kind of comes down to a couple of things. The Qashqai is a really competent all-rounder. The inclusion of standard safety technology is certainly to be commended, and it drives very well and is exceptionally comfortable. Then on the flip side, the Honda is perhaps a little bit more funky, a bit more sporting and engaging to drive, and it is $2,000 cheaper. Whatever the case or whatever your needs, either the Nissan Qashqai or the Honda HR-V represents a well-priced, well-featured, well-known and well-suited urban running compact SUV. As always, hit subscribe to stay up to date with all of our latest videos, or hit the bell icon to receive a notification each time every new one is published. If you have any questions either about the Nissan Qashqai, the Honda HR-V or anything in general, don't forget to hit us up in the comments below. And of course, you can read everything you need to know about this comparison over at CarAdvice.com.